Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LPFM.
Connecting Highline and our region.
History, cultural heritage, art, performances, contemporary pop culture.
We collect, preserve, and tell the stories of the Highline region and its people.
We want to embrace our differences and similarities.
We want to extend our mission outside the walls of the museum. Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LPFM.
Hi everyone, this is Nancy from the Highline Heritage Museum and welcome back. Today we have a wonderful artist and I don't know much about him, but I'm excited to get to know him more about through this interview and see who he is and what he does. But I've just seen little glimpses of his work and it is stunning. And I'm so happy and proud to share that we will be displaying his work really soon at the museum, possibly outside in the exterior case so everyone can just enjoy it as you walk around. But why are we doing this? I think I'm starting to like the message. Why not? Why not? Why not just share the other person's stories? Why not to connect to our mission of the museum, which is to tell everyone's voices and stories, and also why not to get to know who is our neighbors, who is our friends, who is co-workers, and then it's a great way of connecting with each other. So thank you once again for joining us tonight. Thank you also for allowing me to do this interview. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so tell us, who are you?
So my name is Gabriel Newton, and I'm an artist and orca advocate. And many years ago, I was on a solo sea kayak trip through the San Juan Islands and the Gulf Islands, and I was coming back across the Canadian border to the San Juan Islands by myself, and the sun was starting to set, and I encountered a super pod of orcas, and they were just playing and breaching, and I was just sitting there, and they would surface 6 feet from my kayak, and the sound of their breath right next to me
God.
was amazing. And so I've been enchanted by the orcas ever since, and I started to paint them over the years. I was trying to think, like, what could I do to help the orcas more, because they're endangered, the southern residents are. And it was actually my brother's idea. He said, why don't you paint all of the remaining southern resident orcas? And at the time, that was overwhelming. There are 73 left. And so I thought about it for a while, and then I realized that I didn't have to paint them all from the side, in the same posture, to show the saddle patch, which is the distinguishing mark that they use to distinguish the whales from each other. And I realized I could, paint them in different postures, jumping from the water, underwater. And that's what allowed me to say, okay, yes, I think I can paint 73 whales. And I started on that project, and what I do is I paint them on found wood that I find on the beaches around the Salish Sea. So this wood has spent time in the water where the orcas live and feed.
Wow.
And so I finally completed that project last year, and I collaborated with Endangered Species Coalition to put on an exhibition of all of those paintings. So someone could walk in and look around and see all of the southern resident orcas in one room.
I got already many questions, but one of them is like, how long it took you to paint them? But then also, what kind of materials are you using? You're saying that you're using the wood, but are you using acrylic? Are you using pencil? Are you oil painting?
It took me about 3 years to complete the project, and I use acrylic
Okay.
on found wood.
I love to paint myself, and so the idea of painting on wood, knowing that it has many, the texture and the surfaces is different, and how the paint absorbs that into the wood. I imagine that you also had to be really creative and paying attention to the piece of wood for you to come up with a vision of what position what they look like and how big
Exactly.
you want to do. And so I can see there's not just like a piece of paper that you just, okay, this is a vision, a concept, and I just, project it into it. But in your case, you're saying that you had to adapt yourself to what the environment is offering you and then
Yeah, and
align with that.
the wood has grain, of course. So when I can, I try to make the wood grain look like water, the ripples in the water. And that's it's really fun when that works out.
That is so cool because then the way my interpretation of what I'm hearing is that you are not only acknowledging the number of whales all around us and not only acknowledge them individually. It's not just saying the word whale. It's not just one term, one word, but you almost like you naming them, you acknowledge them, you are honoring them.
Mhm.
And I don't think I've ever seen that before. I don't think I've ever seen somebody who, you think about cats or you think about, I don't know, different species and even the human race. We say, oh, the humans or communities, but it's not that individualistic honoring that specific person or by them or in this case, whale. And so I'm surprised. I'm
Yeah.
surprised by many different factors. But you shared that you've been kayaking for a few years. And for you to kayak, I'm assuming that it's not something that just happened. And it's a passion that you've been encountered for probably your whole life. I don't know.
Yes, close. Yeah, I learned to whitewater kayak when I was 13,
Oh my gosh.
and I fell in love with it, and I went on to compete in freestyle, and I was able to get onto the US team in 1997 and go to Ottawa for the World Championships. And
Wow.
that was a lot of fun.
How long have you been in the area in the region?
I've been in the region on and off for 20 years.
Uh-huh.
I came first in 2001,
Mm-hmm.
and then, I've tried to leave for like the mountains or like a smaller town, and I keep getting pulled back by the people.
Well, I'm assuming not just by the people, by the water, by the nature, by I love to kayak myself too. And so for me is the connection to something bigger, the connection of I'm just a little tiny grain in the universe, just one tiny little particle, and that there is all these beautiful things that when in my case, when I'm surrounded by humans, I get absorbed by the problems and the stress and all this. But when I'm connected to nature and when I'm seeing how small I am in contrast to true life, what I mean, true life is something outside of my bubble in my head. Is absolutely beautiful. And the fact that you are connecting it not only as who you are as a human being, not only acknowledging the whales and the risk that they're facing, you're also finding a meaning and mission to that. And then on top of it, you're expressing it through your art. You're expressing it as an extension of you or the work that you do. When did you start to paint?
I was lucky in that my mom really encouraged our creativity growing up. And she started this tradition of making our Christmas gifts each year. So every year I would have to think about, like, okay, what do I want to try this year
Mm-hmm.
to make for my brothers and my parents?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until my 20s when I started to paint more regularly. And then I found that painting on this found wood really spoke to me. Like it made it much more interesting. And that became a real regular thing like 14 years ago.
That is cool. I've been painting myself on wood many years. And one trick that I learned is to, no matter what, I always had to seal it first, coat it first, with whatever background paint I'm using, I mean color that I'm
Mhm.
using. And then from there, just peel on then. But no, it's not as easy, especially when you say you got all this texture on the wood and then you just had to adapt and mold yourself into whatever you see. So you were saying that each one of those paintings represents a whale. Have you painted something else connecting to the whales, or is all just those 73 pieces is all one whale at a time? What I mean by that is maybe another type of whales, maybe another symbolic representation of the environment that we're in.
Hmm. Well, some of the paintings have one whale, some of them have multiple whales.
Okay.
And so they're all represented 73 whales in 46 paintings.
Got it.
And actually 7 whales that have died since I started the project, which illustrates, how endangered they are. So 10% of them have died in 4 years.
How do you know when they die?
Center for Whale Research is out there almost every day looking for them. And so they keep track of the subpods, the familial groups, and they know when a whale is missing from that group that it might be deceased. And so they pay special attention to that group. And when it doesn't show up for a long period of time, they know that it's gone missing or deceased.
And that is also a commitment to know, to locate them too. I'm assuming they just don't stay in one house, that they
Exactly.
use the ocean as their home and your playground. So that's a lot of commitment, a lot of hours, and a lot of resources to be on top of it and to really capture that. I just cannot imagine the volume of work and the volume of love too, a love for and caring and the attachment and emotional investment that you put into a living creature, and especially so beautiful. Well, even if it was not as beautiful aesthetically, just honoring the soul of the spirit. I know I'm talking a lot of stuff, but just hear me out. I like the idea of connecting deeper than what the surface is. And so you've been painting for a long time. Your parents or your mom allowed you to do that. I love the idea of you creating your own Christmas presents. I don't like Christmas much for that reason. I think it's all really money driven. But the idea of doing something sentimental is, for me, is more valuable. Tell me, you describe the experience of you kayaking and then seeing them next to you and seeing how magnificent they are. Do you think will you still feel the same way if it was a smaller species, or it was just how majestic they are that they got your attention?
Well, their size really, adds to the experience. Like, it's so awe-inspiring. The expulsion of their breath is so loud and just resonates,
Mhm.
deeply in here. So that their size definitely contributes to that experience.
I was just saying because of when I think of environmental initiatives or wanting to help, it's almost like you see that the co-sharing the space on with more species or more entities, not just the whales, in this case, like sea lions or the fish or all kinds of different elements that gets affected by the environmental issues. And so yeah, I feel like if you are protecting one, you also might be protecting others too.
Exactly. They're sort of a keystone species for the whole ecosystem. The southern residents only eat salmon and, about 3% other fish. So they really rely on salmon for survival, and the salmon are declining quite rapidly. And, one of the reasons is the dams that had a useful life on the Lower Snake River, but no longer serve the purpose they once did, and they're now causing a little more harm than good.
There's something that I know that there's a website that people can get more information about that. Would you mind sharing, like, how people can find you on?
Sure, GabrielNewton.com.
And on that one, then they can find more information about all the initiatives and all the different elements that to preserve, to honor, to respect, and to save. It's very scary, the number that you mentioned, that 10% has died already within the last
4 years.
4 years. And so doing the math, how many years is well, that's not counting the new ones are coming.
Right.
So there's a cycle, but it is true that we are facing a weird period where not only one element but many elements gets affected by our actions as humans. And how we overproduce and work with the resources that we have, and how at times I feel we are pretty entitled to think that they are disposable. In this case, the lives of animals are disposable for many reasons. But I know that there comes from a lot of love too. That the mission and the messages that you're sharing is comes from a love and wanting to preserve the lives and wanting to acknowledge that. And yes, they are huge. They are big. How big is an average whale?
Well, the males can be 8 to 10,000 pounds
Wow.
and 25 feet long.
How long do they live in average? I mean, what is the lifespan?
Well, there's quite a difference between males and females. Females can live up to 100 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I was expecting more like less than humans. No. And the males?
The males don't live as long. They get to like 50 or 60.
The double. So see, once again, even in humans, women tend to live longer than men. So I don't know why you guys believe that you're stronger, the strongest species here. I think we are the strongest
I
species.
think you're right.
Yeah. But 100 years is a lot. Have you? I love. This is gonna be a weird question here. I love that it's not just a whale. There is a family. It's a community, and that when you're using the term pod, you make me think that they travel as a family.
They do. Yeah, very, very tight knit groups.
When you say that, what is the average of a family traveling together?
Well, with the southern residents, the southern residents are divided into J, K, and L pod. And so those larger pods are like 25 whales, 20 whales, 30 whales.
Wow.
But they travel in those large groups only a little bit of the time. Usually they're in their subpods, which is a matrilineal group led by the mother or the grandmother. And those are usually 5 to 10 whales.
Wow. I don't know. I think it's just it shows my it shows my ignorance on this topic when it comes to understanding how many of them can be together, or how they can work so closely or be so closely as a family in traveling. And then I'm sure that it's not just the environments, even the fishing industries and the boats and the cruises and all the different areas that interferes with their habitat, and then obviously a chain reaction of all of that. Have you encountered the same whale twice?
I I don't have them memorized. And
Yeah.
so, and with the laws that require us to respect them at a great distance,
It's
when I
hard.
take a picture, it's very hard for me to identify them at that distance because I'm not using, a telephoto lens and a big camera. And so I imagine that I have, because I've been so lucky to witness them swim by so many times but I can't say for sure.
The reason why I asked that question is that what if, do you think, here I am, a little girl. This is my little girl hat right now. Do you think that they might recognize you? That's the reason I guess why I asked that question. Like, do you think that they might say, "Oh, there's a guy again. He's just swimming by, and not swimming, but like going through again in the area." Do you think they have that capacity to recognize humans?
I'm sure they do. There are people that work with them more closely, like the Center of Whale Research, and they have been able to recognize them. And there are some amazing stories, like them being out in a small boat to observe these whales, and then the fog rolling in, a dense fog, and they don't know how to get home, and the whales guided them home because they knew where they
They need
they
to.
live.
I don't know. It gives me chills. The idea, the concept of how how much we don't know, It's like, it's almost like we as a humans, we feel more entitled to be dominant in taking care of resources. But as the time passes, I find more and more that animals can show more mercy, more kindness and empathy than humans can do with each other. And so now I'm always in awe by the values that many species and animals can have, and that the integrity that they have way better than some humans in general. And so it's but going back to one thing that you mentioned earlier, and then that's something that I want to acknowledge too, because it's part of your story, is that so you've been competing. How long are you still competing now?
I'm retired from
Whoa.
racing.
What is the age for you to retire?
Well, there isn't, there are many people that are still racing into their 80s.
Wow.
And so there's no cutoff, but I just feel like I've had enough competition in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I still love to paddle for fun,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't need the intensity of the racing, and so I've just stepped back from that.
So I'm assuming that is the adrenaline is huge, and the also the physical pain of it too, because I'm assuming it's not just the spirit driving through you, but it's like you enforcing it through your body and how you have to endure that too, the pain after that. And so you said that you started to do this at 13, kayak, and how old were you when you started to race?
Well, I was 13 when I started to kayak, and then I started to compete at 15,
Okay.
and then I competed in whitewater freestyle until I was about 21.
Okay.
And then I stepped back from freestyle and just did whitewater kayaking and expeditions. So, like big waterfalls, big rapids. There are a number of rapids that I ran for the first time. We call them first descents.
I don't know. I don't know. Um, Sounds exciting. You know what gets me is the rocks. No the water, no the speed, no the idea of drowning, none of that. It's the rocks. The rocks just hitting and then just losing track of anything because of
Yeah,
it. I just recently had a concussion. I'm still recovering from it. And so just one little hit with all the
yeah,
avalanche that came after that. And so that's what I like. It's like I say, if it was just the water and the speed, the adrenaline and the rush of it, I'm in. But the hits, no.
yeah. You gotta watch out for the rocks.
Have you ever encountered that? Have an accident with rocks?
Only minor ones, fortunately.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
good. So I don't know why I would think that the percentage would be a lot higher. So is that common then?
No, it's common to have accidents,
Mm-hmm.
but I was fortunate to have only minor instances, like, hitting my elbow on a rock or something like that.
What will you do? I mean,
And
you're in the middle of the water and you have an accident. How can you make sure that somebody knows that you're safe or not safe, but like you need help?
they were minor enough that I just kept paddling. I just finished the run and then got attention afterwards.
Yeah, that's another element of that too. I guess when you're racing, you got people watching you, but when you're not racing and you have an accident, who will notice?
I always kayak with a few buddies for safety, and so we're always watching each other to make sure
That's good.
we're
That's good.
safe. Yeah.
I don't know. When you say that you kayak solo, I imagine you be more in a space of solitude and in a space of just you and the universe, but not necessarily with friends, and that's a good one. So that's
Yeah, when I'm running hard rapids on a river, I always have friends with me, but
good.
I've done the solo sea kayaking, when it's calmer water and safer to go alone.
Yeah, when I kayak, I normally do it, when it's not windy, when it's not crazy. But have you done it in the cold, snow, winter, foggy?
I've been breaking through the ice
Wow.
with my kayak, yeah. And later I got into ocean kayak racing, and I eventually ended up competing at an international level. And the World Championships is from Molokai to Oahu.
Whoa.
So it's 32 miles open ocean crossing, And when we started on Molokai, we couldn't see Oahu. They're just like paddle that way.
And that's it.
Yeah.
How will you know you're in the right track?
Well, for that race, they require you to have a chase boat. Make sure that you're okay.
What's the chase boat?
A chase boat is a motorboat that's following.
So they can track you too,
Mhm.
just in case you get lost or
Yeah.
wow. So 33 miles, you said?
hmm
How long did that take you to do that?
4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ocean kayak racing is downwind. So they try to find a windy spot and it's from upwind to downwind. So you're surfing the wind swell the whole way.
No, and then if there's winds too, that means that the water is not steady. That means that the water is really
Exactly.
tumultuous, is not and then it may be deceiving. One moment the water is that way, and then the next time the water is the other way around.
Exactly. You know, on that crossing, there's current and then there's the wind waves. And you have to, what drew me to that sport is tuning into the energy in the ocean.
Mm.
And the fastest paddler is using that energy most efficiently. And so they're looking at the waves and figuring out how to use that energy to propel the boat forward.
It takes a lot of um mindfulness to be that aware, to be that observant, to recognize not only what your brain is telling you, I'm going to point A, but to actually read the ocean. That's the way I'm interpreting this, that you're reading the water and trying, even from your position, because you cover right in front of you the kayak, you had to be paying attention on both sides for you to actually see where it's taking you. And you can also feel it, if you're doing this way and you feel like going backwards, like, oh, okay, you organically is telling you how to do that. Well, and so you already retired. You already have this crazy, crazy adventures to the point that you have championships and being able to witness not only what you're capable of, but also what others are and how others can also have, or maybe not the same passion, but you can relate to the drive to do that. And I'm sure that it's really peaceful. So I don't know why, but yeah, your energy is really calm right now. It's like really, really peaceful. So we have around 7 minutes or so. And so I want to make sure that we are tapping into the areas that also represents you, who you are. And so you have been racing, you are connected to nature, you have a mission on preserving and acknowledging the risk of other whales. But tell us more about who you are too. Like, what else are you?
Well, it's been fun to bring the art and the
Mm-hmm.
paddling together, and that is taking place next week because I'm going to paddle from Seattle to Olympia to raise more awareness about the Southern Resident Orcas and to deliver a petition to the governor
Yeah.
to, really take this issue seriously and do what we can to help them recover.
Are you doing it alone or are you doing it as a group?
I'm doing it alone. March is one of the windiest months in the Puget Sound,
Mm-hmm.
and that wind is from the south. So that's a headwind.
So it's the opposite direction.
It's a headwind for 65 miles, and I'll do it over 3 days.
Okay, so you'll take breaks.
Yeah.
Do you normally do it at nighttime too?
No, I don't typically paddle at nighttime. So the first day I'll go from downtown Seattle to Vashon Island. And then the second day I'll go from Vashon Island to 15 miles north of Olympia.
Okay.
And then the third day I'll finish in Olympia and may have a group of kayakers finish the last few miles with me.
Well, that's good. So you're doing it as 90% of the time on your own, but then you also have a group supporting the
Yeah.
project. And that's good. And so March is the windiest. You think that is globally or just here in the Pacific Northwest?
It's specific to the Puget Sound
Yeah.
region, yeah. And then I'm hoping to give one of my paintings from the Superpod collection to the governor. And so,
It's
they're
right.
represented there in the office for him to
to
see every day.
Yeah, you have a beautiful art. And so we need to talk about your exhibit too before we this is how you're gonna see a glimpse of how we're doing it because we haven't even chat about it, the two of us. We know that we're doing your exhibit. Um we know that we're gonna be doing it outside, but and I don't know it will fit all the pieces. It's just, no, so it's gonna be. So how are you gonna select which pieces will go here? Or what will be the concept behind that?
Well, the space is a little smaller, so I
Mhm.
think I'll select, medium to small size pieces so that I can get a variety of paintings in the space.
Okay, and so when you do that too, you combine in the different parts. You're not combining. You're not just allocating one. Let's just say, oh, this is one family. No, you're actually gonna intertwine them in different. You're welcome to get one big one and then the small ones too. So you can get an example of what that is too. You can scale it down. Like one example, we're tripping it down too. And so that is gonna be in the outside case. On facing 152nd Street, and hopefully we still need to talk. We still need to talk about what else we can do, and then what other locations will be potentially in a different location too, which I'm excited. But I'm not gonna reveal this without even me talking to him first. So I'm gonna wait for him to do that. So you got a couple more minutes. Anything else would you like to say about you and who you are and the why it's important to you? The art, the whales. I mean, you already been answering, but just a quick
Well,
summary.
I think that every time a thread in the web of life is broken, our own capacity to thrive is diminished.
Mm,
And, orcas and salmon are such integral threads. So I think it's really important to stand up for them and speak for beings whose voices are a little harder for others to hear.
no, I agree. I agree that at the times I feel that us humans we are a little bit selfish and arrogant in how we navigate through life in general with what is around us in nature and the lack of respect that we have towards nature in many different ways. I'm glad that you're here today to share that, and I'm glad that hopefully people get curious about you. Like, who is he? So you need to repeat again. Where's your website?
My website is gabrielnewton.com.
Okay, so also what we're gonna do is under if you're watching this on YouTube, under the description we'll add his website there, and that way you can find him too if you have questions. And then stay tuned with the social media postings. So we have we'll be promoting the posters and when the exhibit is gonna come up and things like that. I see you got something. You wanna share with everyone what is it?
Yeah, I painted a hat that says "For the Love of Orcas." So that's what I'll be wearing on the paddle down to Olympia.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for vocalizing their voices in a small way here with me. But I know that what you're doing through your art and through all the different things that you're working on is in a bigger way. So thank you for doing it in many different formats. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, it was good. Well, thank you everyone. Hopefully we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM. We envision ourselves sitting at a round table where no one is the leader and stories are heard respectfully, regardless of gender, age, sexual orientation, disabilities, or ethnicity. Our mission is we collect, preserve, and tell the stories of the Highline region and its people. We want to extend our mission outside the walls of the museum. Our Highline Voices represents us all, honoring our past, celebrating our present, and uniting to cultivate our future. This project allows us to reach out to demographics who might be unable to visit the museum. People with disabilities, low-income families, people who don't trust museums, and more. In partnership, we are launching a locally programmed new radio station at the museum, featuring recorded and live Highline's heritage, history, culture, arts, and more. Are you interested in sharing your story? Email director@highlinemuseum.org.